Yesterday we began discussing one of the essential ingredients of the tshuva process, known as vidui devarim, the verbal confession. And I want to go back to one phrase that we learned together yesterday, but give it an extra moment of attention. The Rambam says that when one is performing tshuva, chayav lihisvados lifnei hakel baruch hu. He's obligated to confess before Hashem, God, blessed be He. The Rambam is reminding us that a person does not have the obligation to confess to his friend, unless, of course, his actions directly affected him. We'll get to that soon. A person need not confess his mistakes to his spouse. A person certainly need not confess his sins to his rabbi. Vidui devarim, the verbal confession, is between man and God in the privacy of prayer and that unique relationship. But it's more than that. Because if we think about it, if we're honest with ourselves, one of the reasons that we do sometimes sin, make mistakes or stumble, is because we momentarily convince ourselves or choose not to think about the fact that Hashem is always there. And truly we are always Lifnei Hakel Baruch Hu. Like we read a couple days ago from the Gemara in Maseches Sota, sometimes a ruach shtus, a spirit or a wave of silliness or foolishness overcomes us, and we choose not to be thoughtful, not to live a life of intention and awareness. And that's why an essential part of the tshuva process is not just the vidui and the words itself, but it's the realization of the fact that that vidui, our prayer, our tshuva, is lifnei hakel baruch hu. It's a part of the development and the growth of instilling that awareness that should always be present in our lives, of living a life in the presence of Hashem. Ketzad misvadin, the Rambam asks. So how does one do vidui? What should it look like? The Rambam writes, Omer, Ana Hashem, a person should say, please, Hashem, Chatasi, Avisi, Upashati lefanecha. I have sinned. I have sinned. I have sinned before you. In a moment, we'll discuss what those three different types of sins are. V'asisi kach v'kach. I have done such and such. Fill in the blanks as is appropriate for each person. V'hareini chamti uboshti b'ma'asai. I regret and I'm ashamed of my actions. Ule'olam eini chozer ledavar zeh. And forever, to the best of my ability, I am going to try my hardest not to commit this mistake again. Why does a person say chatasi, avisi, upashati? What are these three types of sins? The Mefarshim explain that a chatasi, is a sin that's done unintentionally or unwittingly. As we've mentioned the past couple of days, even those sins, even the mistakes, perhaps caused by carelessness or a bit of negligence, also require tshuva and contemplation. Avisi and avon is one level more severe. It's a sin that I do intentionally, not out of anger or spite, but because I couldn't control myself. I gave in to my temptations or my desires. Pashati, a pesha, is even one level worse. That's a sin that's done out of anger or spite, maybe a feeling of rebelliousness, God forbid, against Hashem himself. But incredibly, the Rambam tells us that all of these sins, even a pesha, even a sin done out of rebellion, can be accompanied by tshuva. Like the Rambam began this halacha, kol mitzvos shebatorah, every mitzvah, no matter how severe or significant, tshuva is there to fix it. I want to know one other word, which I think one could gloss over quickly, but it's worth thinking about. The Rambam's text of the vidui begins with the word ana, please. I think tshuva takes a certain amount of humility. Sometimes we get used to going through the tshuva season, so to speak. Elul, Rosh Hashanah, the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, Yom Kippur, and it becomes something we take for granted. But if we step back for a moment and think about it, Hashem gives us rules. He asks us or instructs us to follow them. And then sometimes, occasionally, we break them. And the fact that we have an opportunity to fix them, to think about the past, and to build towards a better future. And Hashem says, I'll work with you and I'll make it happen. Chazal call this a gift, the incredible, precious gift of tshuva. It's something that we should realize that we shouldn't take for granted or just assume. And that's why our tshuva, or the verbal confession part of the tshuva, the Rambam says, begins with the word please, recognizing this is something we need to ask, perhaps even beg for. Pay attention in the Machzor, specifically on Yom Kippur, and you'll notice how many of our confessions, how many of our tefillos, how many of the tefillos of the Kohen Gadol himself in the Beis HaMikdash began with the word Ana, a simple, humble please. One more line in the Rambam. He says, Zehu ikaro shel vidui. This is the essence and the foundation of vidui. V'chol hamarbe lihisvados u'ma'arich be'inyan zeh. The more one confesses, and the more one really sits with this and contemplates it in a real way, harei zeh meshubach. The better it is, the more praiseworthy he is. It's reminiscent of the Haggadah, where we say the more one tells the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim at the Seder, the greater it is. Similarly, the more one really delves into his vidui and spends time thinking about it and speaking about it, the greater it is. It's something to keep in mind when we get up to the vidui, the text that's set for us, specifically in the Shemona Esrei on Yom Kippur, during Slichos, beginning a couple of weeks from now, and we have a text where we say, Hashamnu, Bagadnu, I'll hate this, I'll hate that, but it shouldn't be limited just to the words of the Machzor, Kol Amarbe Harei Zeh Meshubach. The more one can personalize it and think about it and really make it a part of his life and his growth, the more of a chance that his tshuva will be real and will be genuine. On the topic of the more the merrier, join me tomorrow for some more learning.